get me all the things I need and set up at the time and get into the group where and plan everything so the order match whatever you are buying. And I'm as a manager, I can be in Hawaii or wherever I go on the beach and go and check everything in order, fine. So they are trying to remove this agony of people start getting tired and back pain, sitting, driving in Kuala Lumpur, driving is terrible. I mean, I'm not in a driving business, I'm in a ice cream business. If I sell it, I don't care if my staff come line up, good morning, boss. I mean, I don't need that, I just need to success. It's a success.
To answer your question, very simple. If you have, now you're using Excel sheet, that normally you email to them that you already updated, now you put the file into the server, you edit it here in Malaysia, at the same moment in China or anything, seeing that you updated the file. So, very simple, no need to put any form. But if you want to put form, also can. You just type in Excel, click, become automatic form.
The nice about this, like say, you can ask me, Alan, can you give me blood? I say, okay, I'll mail it to you. Then just before close business day, 4 o'clock I mail it to you, then I get out. Then you get busy in something, what you want, then you come, where is the email? And you have 300 email came to you, oh, which one? Oh, he forgot to attach it. But now, my duty to go together, we are in the same file. I'm typing what you need, you look, you say fine, so you want to this, that, done. So, like, yeah, approach by, quality-wise, approach by everybody in the same container. And no need everybody to copy it and print it and override the other guy. Everybody has the privilege to practice to deal with this form. So the forms now has more value that is available 24 hours. Everybody has to do his job. No need to print it, no need to have 4 forms of it and everybody have another form now, have to have a meeting. Okay, tell me in your form is 3 and oh, your form is 5. No, it's 1 form and everybody approach it, everybody does his part of it. All right? And as you can see, the Excel, if you don't know Excel, we'll teach you, no problem. Excel and Word, all what you want to know, there is a logic, things with logic are columns and rows, and horizontal and vertical. If it's not, it will be composition. Through this, you can run all your company. So using Excel, these things have training of all kind of things. So at this point, I like to see who like this on your forms, who like to sign today, accept our promotion so we can get you going completely and set a day, group day to train you and your company members, then you are completely taking advantage of that. We usually charge, you know, like 2,000, 1,500, today is running very low, all right, good promotion. And it is equal to only 2-3 hours if you go online from Google head office places, it will cost you $125 an hour multiplied by 3. All right, so for 2 hours at the moment on the promotion, you get all what you have. Like you own us for a few days, we guarantee to solve all your problem and answer your question, get you running. You have your domain, you have your staff, you have everything running, trained for every application you are using, and you just move on. Make it like make your million if you didn't make a million yet. If you have a million, go ahead and make the 10 million and so forth. So would you please raise your hand if you are interested to take advantage of this promotion today?
Can I ask a question?
Please, of course.
You mentioned promotion, what is it?
Please, you can explain Bahasa maybe. So.
Okay. Normally, this kind of setup domain semua you can do it yourself, but a bit hassle because a lot of things you need to set up first. Like you set up a company, normally you send company secretary to do it. Why? You can do it by yourself, but you don't want to do all the hassle. I already go through all the hassle until I can write a book. So I can help you to do all the hassle with minimum cost to settle all your problem. In IT, not your business problem. No, I cannot. I don't know what about your business problem. I just know how I settle my IT first. I IT background, but I see work Excel PowerPoint my life miserable. We don't install anything. We subscribe you into a Google application that you can use all the available online application using your own domain, custom made to you. Very simple.
like the installation would be really all the settings. For example, what domain might be in your domain name, how many customers, how many staff you have, what kind of Excel sheet of customer have, to help you transform everything to this new this.
Assume you have quotation template. You have
things of that.
you have
We migrate all the stuff, get you going.
You have 20 stuff. Normally you copy pen drive every stuff to make a quotation. Now you put in the server. You don't need to know where is the server. Server is the Google. You don't need to on off the server. You just subscribe to the server Google on 24 hours. You can work daripada kat dunia mana pun. Dunia sekarang kan, dunia akhirat. Google Apps is free. But if you go to the marketplace, you tak I can show you how much they charge. Google partner, Google not partner, Google yang orang buat around $200 per hour. $200 per hour kalau dalam lebih kurang 600 ringgit sejam. Kalau anda siap 1 jam. Tapi tak plus training. Dia do webinar. Webinar maksudnya you buka tu, you tengok
Like
sampai
you seeing a movie.
You seeing a
Nobody interactive to ask a question. And of course you don't want to leave your business sit down a few months to say, now I did. We are doing it for you in 2 days, getting the whole thing done, answer all your question, give you hand, help you. Now you are everything running automatic and easy.
Okay, we can do question and answer later. I will invite representative from background. This is very enterprise of Google partner. Talking about you, when you reach your millions, what you will do with your application.
This is like end of the tunnel. We are the beginning of the tunnel. We
Yes.
take you, we speed you, then you cross the mansion, then you reach him and say, now I have everything, 100 times, and I really need to get into one of these large scale solution. All right?
Okay.
Hi, good morning. Just set this up.
While he's setting up, any question? Before I run back. Okay, promotion sikit lah. This is my book, you can buy in MPH or Popular. One of the bestseller, Alhamdulillah. So, already going to third reprinting, distributed by Truwell. And if you want to learn how to build KLCC using the computer dulu, siapa ada pernah pakai AutoCAD? AutoCAD berapa harga dia? RM1,000. Ini free dan ini cara nak buat design benda-benda ni dalam bahasa Melayu. Okay, ni kita boleh refer kemudian boleh. Bila pun geng Apple.
Anybody didn't have one of these form? Everybody had one already? See if we can fill it.
Okay, well, I set this up sekejap, just bear with me. Let me introduce myself. I'm Azmin. I'm here with some colleagues at the back from Micra. Thank you to SME Talk and thanks to everyone, especially here, for actually coming down to have a listen to what Google for SMEs or from our perspective, Google for Enterprise. Our colleagues mentioned tadi, partner mentioned tadi, they said that they were essentially the start of the spectrum in terms of what Google can offer. But most importantly, I think it's the most critical component, in fact, as I will add in a while. Sebenarnya to talk about Google is fairly easy because I think everyone has heard about Google or have used some of Google services before. So secara awam, if you look at what Google can offer, you're familiar with Google.com, you're using Google for search. You have some Google.com or Yahoo users here. Nak kata which one is the best, I would say it's a matter of personal preference. Of course, in terms of what it does, Google essentially is a search engine company. But it transcends more to than just beyond search. Let's get the slides out. What we do essentially is we look at the enterprise side of Google, which incorporates some of their solution offerings, but is targeted for the businesses. So what we hope to be able to share today is just to share with some of the ideas and some of the typical use case that our customers or the SMEs may have in relation to Google Enterprise. I'll be skipping a bit in terms of the slides, going to more relevant slides. Again, today I think we only have like half an hour, 40 minutes, so there's going to be only probably one slide about the company, and then you're going to skip to the actual subject matter. Okay. Alright. Boleh dengar ke? Boleh eh? Okay, so a little bit about the company. We started in 2002. We're based in TPM right now, and we, as Rashidi mentioned just now, we are the Google Enterprise Partner in Malaysia. I'll explain a bit more about what that really means and what we actually do in Malaysia. Okay. All right. Okay. For Google, essentially the enterprise business started literally 2 or 3 years after they started the company. We all know Google as the search engine. We all know Google as google.com. Google Enterprise for the region, for APAC, only came in about quarter 4 of 2007. So what that really means is that it's agak baru juga, it's literally new in this region. But the response has been very, very positive for the past 3 years, in fact. What we do for Google is that we provide the service, we provide essentially consultancy and deployment services for Google in the region. Let me give you an idea of what Google is all about. When we talk about Google Enterprise, this is the easy bit lah sebenarnya, because I hope to be able to relate back to what Google offers for the consumer. See, Google is a bit different from the usual suspects. For Microsoft, for example, Microsoft usually offers enterprise first and then consumer. But Google terbalik, it offers the consumer first and then enterprise. Maybe it's a strategy, but personally I think the strategy is paying off. When you have a lot of eyes or a lot of people using your services, you get a lot of input, you get a lot of feedback on how to improve the product. Then only you are confident to actually position it for businesses. So the first thing here would be the universal search. Again, if you look at what Google is all about search. Enterprise search is bringing the technology into your organization. I'll share a bit more about what it is all about in a while. Next, we look into, most of you have probably used Google Earth, the free Google Earth, or use Google Maps for that matter. So that's what we call, which fits in the geospatial segment of Google's business. So there is an enterprise offering in that space for businesses. Lastly, actually, young security compliance and messaging collaboration is actually, to me, it's one. I think the company before me mentioned about Google Apps. So apps sits in this space. There's two parts of it, which is of course the messaging and collaboration, which I think you've seen some examples just now. But there is the security element of it, which is of course also a cloud service which Google offers. So essentially there are three parts for Google Enterprise. There's search, there's geospatial literally for people like us, maps lah, peta lah. And then there's apps. Apps here in this context will be email and collaboration. Okay, so if you look at businesses today, these are quite critical components to any business. What this literally means is that we're looking at how Google is positioning their solutions. They're positioning as productivity solutions for business. Because after all, if we look at universal search, or we look at search for that matter, it's actually just providing you better access to information. Itu sahaja sebenarnya. Whether that translates into better productivity, that is basically the benefits of having better access to information. So I'm going to start today talking a bit more about what Google Enterprise Search is all about. Okay, I have to just go down a bit because the first slide is actually on geospatial, but I think I'm going to talk a bit more about search today. Yeah. Okay. So what Google is sekarang ni Google calls it enterprise search and then there's consumer search. Enterprise search really means business. Tapi when we talk about enterprise search, how Google positions the solution is called universal search. Why? Because they're saying is that you don't really need to care where the information is, so long as it's there, you are supposed to get fast, accurate, and relevant results. So in a way, they're saying that it's universal in that context. Another way is that, okay, before I go to that, what is search? Okay, when we talk about search as a company or as an SME, or kita semua SME, we're an SME as well. In an organization, we have two areas where we actually have information. We have the web, typically it's our web presence, a website, or portal, or storefront, can be anything. And next is our organization. Well, when we talk about information in the organization, from an IT context, we will have maybe to have a file server. Earlier they mentioned, I think CRMs and your ERPs, we will have specific applications. So now we realize that most organizations may have internal applications within. At the same time, they also have information on their web. So typically this is where all informations lie. So how Google is positioning enterprise search is to cater for the web and the organization. So if you look at a company, let's go back 10 years back. 10 years back, this portion, which is we call structured information. Structured information in this context, let's talk about applications. Anything which is database driven. These are the stuff that used to be prominent because semua orang talk about ERP, talk about e-commerce.com, dan 10 tahun lepas, that was the in thing. You will have everything in your organization. You will have the application, installed within your organization. But if you look at the current trend, now we find that there's more unstructured information. Unstructured information would be the Word documents in your computer, the Word documents in your file servers. It can even be your intranet for that matter. So these are unstructured information. And in most organizations now, they segregate. Ada yang internal stuff that we don't share with people. Those are the secure stuff, and there's some information for public. Okay. Anywhere little means it's because everything is connected. Sekarang ni it can be anywhere. So what we're looking at is how Google fits in this environment. Okay. Untuk Google.com, it's free. The servers are hosted at Google. So if you ask me kat mana, it's actually everywhere lah. Google has a global presence. In Malaysia, they may have some servers. In Singapore or in this region. So if kita type Google sekarang, you see that we are redirected to google.com.my kan. So that just means that it gives a local interface for Malaysia lah. Okay. For enterprise search, Google's strategy is positioning an appliance. So what that really means is an on-site implementation of Google's technology in your organization. Arti kata lain, it's a hardware lah, it's a server, but we call it an appliance lah. There's a difference between apa server dan apa appliance. Tapi it's an appliance which is deployed within the organization. What that really means is that it gives and delivers the same power which of enterprise search which you may expect from Google.com in your organization. Okay. When we talk dalam one organization, kita mention tadi, I showed you this example. There's a lot of stuff there. We call it when we pitch for this, we call it silos of information. Maknanya benda tu satu, which means that kalau kita nak information daripada application ni, kita kena pergi application ni, login, search dalam ni, keluarkan maklumat. Same thing for here. If you want this application, you have to log in into this application and get the information out. The whole idea now is that is there a way for us to actually bring out the information without having to actually manage or access individually semua application ni. So there is a way. How Google is positioning it is that the appliance itself. Okay, the reason ada cheese internally is called a cheese box, right? Memang dia rupa macam keju bulat-bulat ya. So it's a nice yellow box there. It's an appliance. How it works is that it leverages on all the information assets internally to be able to actually capture the information. Okay, what does Google do? Okay, it's not so much technical, tapi I just explain to you supaya kita jelas. Google as a search engine, what does it do? It crawls. Crawls maknanya the search engine actually sends out, let's say, robots, web bots out to actually capture pieces of information daripada website and whatnot. So bila dia ambil information tu, dia balik, it builds an index. So that index yang kita akan refer balik. So bila kita search, that's why kita selalu tengok, kenapa bukan ni laju sikit lah. When we type, we get the results quite fast. Because there's already a pre-built index on the specific subject matter or anything for that matter lah. So that's the reason it's fast. So we try to bring that in an organization where the appliance will be able to connect to all the information repositories that you may have. Internally, you may have your file servers, which is your file shares. You may have your intranet. You may have applications which run on databases. You may have your enterprise applications. You may have your document management, content management. Banyak ada sekarang. And we cannot keep track of what I can say SMEs, because I'm also an SME, what we are installing in an organization sekarang, because it's a lot of things. So what we want to be able to do is harness the information to actually bring it out. How I like to see the appliance work is an ideal way to actually leverage on all the information assets yang are available in an organization and have a global view of what we have. Because most of the time kita tak tahu apa yang ada dalam tu. Because a typical use case is that 6 months ago I remembered I did something, some work. It's there, it's distributed within my organization. But to get pieces of information 6 months later is usually an issue. Not unless you're using Google Apps, like our colleague mentioned just now, you can share and collaborate. But for common people like us, that is still an issue. So we want to be able to actually leverage on something which actually brings out the information. So it's just about that. It's actually bringing out the information. Okay. Before we get, just to make it interesting, we have actually 2 very limited edition T-shirts which we just got from Mountain Dew in the States. It's for Q&A later. Ada 2 soalan je lah yang nak ditanya pun. So hopefully everyone understands or have any questions, boleh tanya lah. Any interesting questions of course. Okay. When we talk about enterprise content, as I mentioned, we usually focus on the internal information yang ada. We use Google search engine to actually search outside, in the outside world, to see what information is available out there. We still use the same Google's mantra, like when we talk about enterprise search is fast, relevant, accurate. So they try to bring the same component, the same elements in the organization, positioning it as via this search appliance. Let's see. Okay. One cool thing lah, kalau pernah tak pakai google.com and you type ringgit USD for example, or you type Kuala Lumpur weather, apa yang akan keluar? Keluar will be the currency exchange. If you type ringgit USD or you type Malaysia weather or Kuala Lumpur weather, you will see a 5-day weather forecast. So those are predefined responses yang in Google's context, we call it one box. So that's available via this box as well. Let me just give you a quick example. What are people using this in Malaysia sekarang? It's easier to see from use cases. Okay. Jabatan Perkhidmatan Awam, JPA. Everyone's heard of them, JPA. So JPA, they deal with a lot of information. They have a lot of appealing, direct documents which relate to the civil service, and they also have cross-reference between SPA, Suruhanjaya Perkhidmatan Awam, and also sometimes from the Treasury as well, and kewangan. So banyak dokumen yang orang nak tengok, nak lihat. So what they faced was actually getting the information out on their website to make it available to the public. At the same time, how do they actually maintain that what they are showing or serving to the public is the latest? You see now SPA, Kementerian Kewangan all maintain their own content. Untuk kita letak, you cannot expect kita letak manually every time kita nak update. It's going to be challenging lah because we won't have the time to do that. So what we do is that we are able to actually connect to all this, JPA, SPA and Kewangan, tapi what we call it, serve the information up from JPA's website. So you will now be able to actually get all the information from these other 3 websites from one single site. Okay, just to give you an example of what's available on the enterprise side. Typically what we look at, yang biru tu we call it the adik, like the little brother. It's essentially for work group size environments, departmental use. We have use cases where some manufacturers in Penang, kalau yang familiar dengan Torre Group in Penang, they're Japanese manufacturer. So they use this internally. Why? Because they appreciate that it supports Japanese language, for example. So tadi we talk about Google's efforts in cross language or translation or supporting different multiple language. So if your businesses does require support for Chinese characters or support for Japanese characters or Thai characters, so you may find that this tool actually does bring up the information for you. Essentially, it does the same thing, but as you can see, ini bukan harga, it's not 500,000 ringgit. What that really means is the document that it supports. This means Google ni dia licensed by document account. Okay. For example, use case for the web. FIFA masa World Cup, they were using this. So if you type Malaysia, masa tu apa yang keluar, Julai 2007 for example. So not much of Malaysia there lah. Malaysia pun tak masuk World Cup masa tu. So hopefully with the new team we can make it in 10 years. But anyways, what we're saying is that high traffic sites, even Apple, you go to apple.com, how they position it is that belakang dia is the Google appliance and the yellow box, tapi it searches Google, Apple content to actually serve Apple users. Okay, so if you look at enterprise search, essentially, if access to information matters to you, if we have a lot of content internally, if we have branches all over, contohnya all over the world or all over Malaysia, and you have, let's say, as simple as you have 5 branches, each branch has its own file server. But from HQ, you will not be able to see all this information. So what can be done is essentially each site can actually have a Google search appliance, which will then what we call federate the results, combine the results together so that di HQ kita boleh tengok semua. But of course you can control at the site. Contohnya the Kuantan office will only see Kuantan information, the Terengganu office will only see Terengganu information. But what we want to be able to do is to federate or combine the results to actually have one unified result. So Google, essentially you're harnessing Google's technology to bring it to halaman. To actually, if search is important, search essentially, like I said, it does not do any other magic except search, the search box. So that literally will translate to better productivity. You don't waste time looking for information. It will hopefully improve the turnaround time for you to serve your customers, and that will translate to, of course, making more profit for you. Because we had a customer say, hey, kalau I beli ni, will my business be better? I said, it will be better, but the indirect benefits via the indirect benefits. Okay. I'm not going to talk much about apps because I think sebut tadi pasal apps, but essentially just one quick mention about Google Apps is that there are several variations of Google Apps. Google Apps for Business, that's what it's called sekarang. It's not even called Premier anymore. Essentially falls into 2 categories. We have the Google Apps Standard, which is free for use. It supports up to 50 users, but of course, if you need assistance, then you can actually leverage on the expertise of companies like our colleague there or partner there, who can assist you on a step-by-step to actually manage and initiate your Google Apps implementation. And you have the Google for Business, Google Premier, which is essentially a paid version of Google Apps. It gives you more storage space. It will give you some other cooler features, but essentially, if you're looking to try out Google Apps, then Google Apps for standard is good enough. Okay. Of course, there's also, I don't think it's relevant, but there's also Google Apps for education, Google Apps for NGOs. So there are variations of this. If you're interested, I think you can take this offline with us after the talk. Let's just go. Okay, we talk about Google Maps. Is everyone pernah pakai tak Google Maps? It's just a show of hands, just to make sure that it sounds good. Okay, at least quarter of the crowd pernah pakai Google Maps. Google Maps essentially is a hosted service, okay, which means that it's hosted at Google servers. You do not have to install Google Maps on our PC or our server, tak perlu. So, essentially Google Maps, there is a consumer side of it. What does that mean? You can use Google Maps for non-trade related usage. If you look carefully at the terms and conditions, it says that any public-facing site entitles you to use Google Maps for free. If you start charging people to actually view your map, if you put it internally within your organization, in your intranet, if you develop an application based on it, there are specific licensing models for those use cases. Tapi kalau setakat kita nak kata guna Google Maps, I want to show where my address is on the website, on my website, I just want to use Google Maps to show where my office address is, that's fine. You're not actually charging people to actually view that information. It's free for the public, so it's fine. It doesn't violate any terms, the terms of use. When we talk about Google on the commercial side, typically we look at Google Maps being used by companies who actually want to have three scenarios. Number one, they are developing an internal application. Let's say they're in logistics or they want to actually monitor the supply chain. They want to be able to track, for example. So those are internal applications that they can leverage on Google Maps. Kenapa pakai Google Maps? You can actually develop an application and buy a map from a content provider. Number one is a one-off purchase. Number two, you have to pay for the updates because the maps definitely is going to keep changing. So you don't want to bear the cost of actually maintaining the maps. So you rather actually sort of outsource it, talk to people like Google, get a subscription to the map, let them do the maintaining, but you just subscribe to the service offering, which means that you don't really own the map, but you use it internally. Okay, so that's one use case for internal apps. Number two, tracking using GPS, for example. You have a fleet where you want to track your lorries, for example, or your trucks, or your ships, or whatnot. You want to be able to actually track by GPS. I think there was one use case in the States where even sekarang ni marathon ada pakai RFID and GPS. Siapa yang marathon? So they track it by the site. So there are a lot of use cases. Map has a broader appeal now because we see that a lot of people relate to map. Bila kita letak map as something yang say satu benda yang ke depan, rather than showing textual information, they show a map and the user can drive and navigate via themselves. Usually has a better effect. That's what we see the trend currently. Okay, Maps API by Google is essentially a subscription. It's an annual subscription. The model is either based by page views or by users. For example, if it's an internal app, if you know that you're going to have 50 users using it, then you should subscribe to a 50 user model. If it's an external app, you develop an app which is going to be out on the net, you're going to charge people for it, for example. So you may want to look at the age use of users. To give you, I actually jumped the gun just now. I missed one slide, but just to look into what Google offers. When we say geo, is essentially the geospatial components of Google. Everything here, there's a free exposure to that. Why? Because that's how Google works. Most of you have used Google Earth, the free version of Google Earth. There are two versions of Google Earth. Google Earth, in fact, Google Earth Pro. What that means is essentially it's still a client. You download, you pay for it, install it on your machine. It's still the same imagery, the satellite image sama aja. By paying for it, you're not going to be enemy of the state when you get up to the minute punya updates lah. That's the misconception. A lot of people feel that if I pay for Google Earth, would I be able to see the kenduri I had yesterday, for example, that came out? No. It really means that it's the same imagery, same satellite image, and Google provide to the free. What it gives you is that things like better print resolution. You'll be able to actually overlay some of your information, if you are into GIS, some of your GIS information onto the client in a more efficient manner. There are some advanced features which you will be able to do some limited analysis using the tool. Okay, this is still connects to Google. Maknanya bila kita install, kita click, it still connects to Google. There are some cases where you don't want your information to be sent to Google for whatever reason. So you want to be able to install Google Earth on premise, on site, disconnected from Google. So what it means is that you're going to have to look into Google Earth Enterprise. Why do people like Google Earth is how it visualizes. But it's super the way the globe visual, you can actually visualize the globe and stream the information. But it's fast. That's the only reason people like it, because it's fast. You can actually find the information, get information out fast. So virtual globe applications like Google Earth Enterprise, the appeal is that right now, if I can have it internally, I can put my data on it. But those are proprietary information or very KNC information. I do not want Google to actually have access. Sebenarnya, one of the, let's say for example, MINDEF in the States lah, I'm not sure in Malaysia, they have banned installing Google Earth in their networks. Kenapa dia kata, tak boleh install Google Earth dalam PC? Sebab the tendency for us to geotag or to put something online is there tau. Kita tengok, ni rumah saya. Banyak orang dah buat macam, this is my house lah, or my address. Once you do that, what that really means is that it's in public domain already. If you erase it pun, it's still there lah. Somehow you already commit to Google that information is there. Once it's in, it's there. So Google Earth Enterprise, what it is essentially is a controlled environment where you are able to actually display your information with your content. Okay. Ada lumayan some promotion. There's SketchUp here. SketchUp Pro, in fact. Okay. So it's the same thing. Essentially, it's the 3D modeling tool. This is the tutorial. The software is essentially available. There's the consumer version of SketchUp and this SketchUp Pro, sort of enterprise version of it, the business version, paid or also the business, the paid version of it. Okay. Dan tadi yang saya cakap tadi tu is map. Everything you see here is software based except for the search. The search is hardware. It's an appliance we install in the organization. The enterprise, the geo products are literally mainly software where you install, except for Google Maps, which is a subscription you just subscribe. Okay. Any questions so far on either search or maps? Soalan. Well, if you look at how this relates to us, let's skip the product page. Let's talk about how why would I want to use Google Maps? Okay. Some examples of use cases. We see a lot of people using maps as a way to actually present information. We call it visualization. So macam contohnya HSBC, Stanchart, couple more banks in Malaysia dah start pakai branch locators. based on Google Maps. So if you have branch and you want to make it visible, more appealing to your users, you may want to be able to actually look into this. Everyone from P1 to YTL, yes, to the usual suspects like the TM, semua pakai Google Maps to actually show the service coverage. Ada tak coverage Unify dekat sini, ada tak coverage P1 dekat sini. Because why? Senang orang tengok, okay, ini rumah saya dekat sini ada tak? They want to be able to actually just go down to the address or search for the address and use it. And Google makes it easy because number one, you don't have to maintain the map. Number two, you can actually design the application and actually get the map information to actually work with what you plan to do. Okay, so rather than after Ramadan, let me just share on what these people have done so that you have a better idea. Some examples of users in Malaysia in all three categories. Okay, so these are some of the people yang have used Google Enterprise. It's a mix tau, bukan semua pakai search. For example, Ministry of Works, they are maps and search implementation. Their use case was our website. We want to actually enhance the user experience bila they search for information. So they use Google, the appliance, to actually just do that. They also use a lot of maps internally for their own internal apps. The same goes for Universiti Malaya. Just want to add, Universiti Malaya is one of the biggest apps users in Malaysia, Google Apps users. They have probably 150,000 accounts for the alumni. So that's Google Apps for Education. We have people like OUM, 68,000 accounts. A couple more universities and colleges taking up apps for education. We've got like people like Petronas using the appliance to actually search internal information as well. CIMB using it internally as well. If internally you're using, contohnya your intranet, you're using SharePoint or whatever intranet application, people like Iskandar, they're using SharePoint, but they feel that SharePoint was not able to actually get the information from all the applications. So they actually brought in Google Search Appliance to be able to actually get all the information out to SharePoint. Folks like Michelin, Alam Sekitar, they're using Google Maps. The use case, how you use it is limitless. People like JS, Alam Sekitar, they're using it to tunjuk environmental API yang air pollution index. Ini nak tengok kawasan ke kampung saya dekat Johor, what's the pollution index? So you want to be able to actually just go down to Johor, go to Batu Pahat and see what's the pollution index, see the figure. So people are using maps to actually drive traffic to their site and actually provide a better interaction with their users. These folks are apps folks. Dia memang guna Google Apps internally. Malaysia Airlines using Google Apps. AirAsia is using Maps for their tracking, for their parcel. Kan dia orang ada cargo, red cargo or something. They're using it to actually track externally. So those are some examples of users of enterprise customers in Malaysia. Okay, what we do is essentially assist these customers, develop the strategy for them, do the implementation for them, whether it's search or whether it's maps. Maps, of course, has a longer cycle because we have to look into the actual requirement because it involves developing the applications. So in Malaysia, not in the list, people like DG using it, people like MCMC, SKMM is using it. So there's a lot of people using or realizing the value of Google Maps. The reason orang pakai Maps again, kenapa? Because if you want to buy the maps, you have to maintain. Kalau contohnya Lebuh Max tiba-tiba ada, then you have to buy the latest updated maps from the map provider to nak tunjukkan Lebuh Max tu ada kat sana. But with Google Maps, we leverage on what Google has. It's not tomorrow highway launch, esok masuk. It's give it 2 to 3 months lah. 2 to 3 months in our world is fast enough lah, right? Because usually the content provider for maps, dia kata setahun dua kali dia akan update lah. So when Google says 2 to 3 months is good enough, hopefully. Yeah, for some of you. So essentially, when we talk about Google Enterprise, just to recap, Google Enterprise means enterprise search, maps, and the email. Everything that we would expect from the consumer side, everything that we use on a day-to-day basis, under the enterprise enterprise search, just to recap, is the appliance, is a hardware base, it's deployed in your organization. For geospatial, it's all software based, except for Google Maps, which is a subscription. Everything else is installed on your PC or server. Apps is a hosted application. It's a cloud service. We have our experts over here, which you can actually talk about apps. Bytecraft as a company, we actually focus on the first two. We work with partners like our colleagues here for apps implementation. But you still can talk to us if you want some product information. So secara amnya, if you look at Google for the enterprise, this is the offerings. Yeah, when we talk about, let's say Google just opened an office here 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks ago. Google ada banyak division now. You got Google for the consumer, Google Enterprise, Google for business. There's also the folks that actually focus on the AdSense, the AdWords, the advertising portion of Google. So there are several elements in the whole Google partner ecosystem. For us, we just focus on enterprise solutions. If you feel that there are any requirements that you may have for you or for your customers in the area of enterprise search, or if you have any ideas on how to actually enhance and incorporate a search strategy within your organization, or if you have ideas of how you want to be able to visualize your information on a map, then definitely we welcome. We have got some colleagues there. Maybe you can stand so orang boleh nampak. We've got Shamil and Aziz and Halis over there who will be able to assist you. Okay, ada soalan ke?
Google Appliance kena beli ke ataupun?
Okay, good question. The Google appliance is essentially yours. So you have to buy the appliance, it becomes your appliance. Okay. Sekejap. Okay, let me just get the slide out so that you have an idea. Yeah. Okay. Depends on what you want to use it for. If it is for internal use, then it's located in your organization. So you install it at your office. So people like macam Jabatan Kerja Raya or Iskandar, dia pakai untuk dalaman je. So it's installed in their organization. But we have people who use it to power up their websites like UM or KKR. So these people actually use it, put it at their data center. It's hosted with their websites. To answer your question on how much, how much can you Okay, what does before I explain how much, what does a document mean? Kalau kita type kat google.com, the search result, each link is considered one document. So whether it's a Word document ke, it's an image ke, it's an Excel file ke, it's a PDF ke, it's considered one document. Maknanya each search results return is considered one document. So for the Google Mini, we usually propose those who are looking to actually start their own search strategy with it, to actually maybe start looking at the entry-level Google Mini. So in most cases, it ranges from 50,000 documents to 200,000 documents. Okay, in terms of pricing, what it will consist of is the appliance itself. Each appliance comes with a 2-year support contract from Google, which enables you to actually get the latest updates for the software for the appliance, and also the hardware warranty, which means if anything, if there's a hardware failure, if it's because it's a manufacturer issue, then we actually replace the box for you within that 2 years. It's a 2-year support contract. And of course, there's the professional services which we provide. Essentially, when we talk about search, it's supposed to be plug and play. Kita masuk je, install, configure it to actually point where you want it to search, and it's set. But you must always remember, internally, when we talk about search is something that you need to be able to see your user behavior, what they look for, and cater for them. Sebab contohnya, what do they look for tapi tak jumpa. So kita, as say I'm the administrator, I will be able to see, boss, these are the information that my colleagues are looking for, but they cannot find it. So you'll be able to address. So those are simple things that we can do to actually hand in hand with you. So in terms of the 50,000 documents, the price starts at about 24,000 ringgit, which provides you a 2-year contract with Google.
If you notice it, per day, per month, per week, per year.
Okay, kalau per day, for the 2 years. But the asset belongs to you. We do have arrangements with some leasing companies which provide a leasing package for those who are looking to actually opt for leasing. So contohnya, if you want to actually procure using a leasing model, that can be done as well. Okay. This is an on-site, installed, deployed in your organization. Ada soalan lain ke?
This means if you subscribe this enterprise, you can be a top ranking of the Google search engine.
Okay. Again, saya nak stress yang benda ni actually tak ada kaitan dengan Google.com. Google.com tu is essentially